Welcome to Getting Real with Josh Boyer, the show that embraces radical vulnerability and authenticity. Josh creates a judgment-free zone for his guests to share openly and candidly. Listen in as they discuss life, philosophy, passion, drive, empowerment, and purpose. Join us as we seek to leave our world better than we found it and send ripples of positive, lasting change out into the world.
Super stoked on this podcast, guys, because it's with my family, and I'm super excited. Like, I really do think that things happen in divine order, you know, where it's like there's no happenstance to anything. And I got a call from Steven saying that, telling me about the Black Mountain Academy, and it was like a perfect time because it was like where I wanted to shift the podcast from going away from some of the mindset stuff that I was talking about, going more into like getting real with things about real life issues and things that we need to overcome. And so now I'm here with my family doing a podcast with Buckley and Christy and Steven, and we're going to talk about living with autism, what that means for Buckley, what that means for his dad and his mom, and how that's like shifted some of the family dynamics. What are some of the things that they've had to do to like overcome some of the obstacles with autism? But I want Buckley to share his story first and share with you guys like what his life has been like being diagnosed with autism and like what some of the things you've overcome and how you've overcame them. So I'm going to let you take it away and share your story as much as you want to share. You can go from the very beginning, you can go from the middle, wherever you want to start. And I'll ask you questions as we go.
Well, to begin with, I think we found out, like, not actually doing a test, but doing a dyslexia test for it. And, like, the lady who did it just suddenly said, like, as you know, as your child is on the spectrum, he's, like, prone. And then my mom, like, stops her there, and it's just like, what? So, I mean, she can fact check me on that, but I'm pretty sure that's how it started. Right. So that was in my 6th grade year, and that was a chaotic year. Yeah. I started acting like I thought society deemed me to act because of my new situation instead of how I actually should have acted.
Right. Did you feel different from the kids that you were going to school with? Like when you were younger, like kindergarten all the way through to 6th grade, did you feel like you were just different than some of the kids, weren't getting along with them? Or
looking back, it is very, very evident that I was on the spectrum. Right. Like even Halloween, like something popped in my head. Like I never liked saying to trick or treat. I didn't like talking to people there. Right. I was just like, this just seems odd. Why am I going to someone else's house asking for candy? So I would always go with people, and they would say it, and I would be like, "Peg."
What made you feel weird about it? What about that was weird for you? Like, like think about it now, from where you stand now. Do you still feel like it's weird, like going and trick or treating and like having people hand you candy?
Yes.
What's weird about it to you?
It seems like, hey, let's defy this. It just seems, well, I feel like I'm defying the social norm with it, but it's like, I don't know. It's not just the fact that you're told, like, don't do this with, like, strangers and candy and crap. Because it's like, oh, it's Halloween, but it's like, because you could go trick-or-treating to people's houses that you like. It's just the aspect of talking to someone, just suddenly going to their house, dressed as a monster, and asking for candy.
Right. It seems pretty odd, even for me, like, sitting here, like, yeah, that's kind of weird. Yeah. Showing up in a costume, you don't know who I am, I don't know who you are, and you're going to give me some candy. Yeah, totally.
Stranger. Taking candy from strangers.
It's kind of weird. So what about, like, what do you think some of the hardest challenges were for you, like, growing up, when you were, like, from the time you started school all the way until you figured out, like, okay, yeah, I'm on the spectrum. Like, what was the hardest challenge that you were having to overcome, you think?
I think it's still to this day that I haven't overcome is my volume issues.
Like just being loud?
Mm-hmm. Along with overactivity.
Yeah.
And, like, if I don't take my ADHD medicine, I am every which way at once.
Right.
But I think probably the hardest aspect of school is the social part, because I'll go like 2 months starting out of school. If I didn't know anyone, it's just like, that was basically it. Like 2 months with no friends, just like kind of leering into a party. Right. It's kind of like, hey, I'm here.
Yeah. Did you feel that? Did you feel the difference where it's like you have all these kids over here with their friends and you felt like the oddball out?
I didn't feel like the odd one out.
No?
I felt like in my own world, like if everyone was playing Foursquare, then again, it's like, that's not really a social group. Let's just play a game. But then it's like, like when people go off and get into their different groups, I'm like kind of just like photobombing, just listening. Just like potential friends? No, not potential friends.
So what in your mind, like now, like what would be a friend? Like what would be an ideal like situation for you?
To be honest, I still don't know, because I've kind of like, even this year, I kind of broke the barrier down.
Yeah.
Of then like who I'm friends with.
Yeah.
Technically, but
Did you feel close with the kids at Black Mountain Academy?
I did, because we all had one thing in common.
Right.
We
Yeah.
pretty obvious what we had in common, but
Right. But what about, like, besides having autism, like what were some of the things that helped you connect with those kids there?
it just something about it with like different kids at different stages in it. It's just like, oh, that was me like 7 years ago. That was me 2 years ago. This is me now. It's like, it feels like we're literally repeating the same stuff, like having the same problems, just at different periods of time.
Right. I want you to share your journey of going on the wilderness adventure. I was fascinated by this, to let you know, because I think that there's a lot of people, even people that don't have autism, like just regular random people walking around, that could benefit from going out into the wilderness and like learning kind of what you're capable of, being away from your phones, away from TVs, and kind of like really getting in touch with yourself. So I want you to share like your journey of going out there and like what the catalyst was for you even taking that plunge to going into that experience.
Well, it was a much needed, I would consider it a reset button.
Yeah.
Because we were doing homeschooling, and it worked the first year, sort of, kind of, and then the second year, not at all. I was unmotivated, I was belligerent and argumentative, and just a total piece of crap to my mom, who I adore in this world, but still, it's like, there was a whole situation about like, oh, like, there has to be a plan. So they went to Tennessee to get to have a meeting with an educational consultant. Name?
Ann Thompson.
Ann Thompson. All right. And they came back, and I was stoked because they figured out, like, basically like last minutes, like right before a flight, basically, that like, hey, there's an opening in Utah, and this is Aspiro Wilderness Therapy.
Right.
It's like, so I was stoked, and then like we left like the next Wednesday or something, didn't we?
Pretty quick. I don't
It
remember
was very,
exactly.
Yeah. So,
Were you nervous? Were you nervous to be like, wow, I'm leaving my home? Like,
no, I was not nervous. I was excited. I was constantly ready. Like, I think I asked you like every day, what's the flight? I could probably go back through the texts and just like figure out, like, I was definitely asking a lot because I wanted to know a little bit about it.
Yeah.
I just saw it as like kind of like a summer camp, but like one that would really help me.
What did you want to get help with? Like, what were some of the things that you felt like you needed to get away and like kind of figure it out?
Just like a reset button. Just like, let's purge the tar of the old me, and let's put in a fresh mold.
So when you were going through things at home, can you conceptualize like, okay, I'm yelling at my mom, or I'm like getting like, did you know like, hey, I'm doing this, I need to stop? Were you even thinking that way?
I wasn't even thinking.
No?
To be honest, I don't remember most of the stuff that I did. I feel as if I am completely a different person, because it was a big change during it, from me then and me after it.
Right.
Of course, I got taller, but
Significantly.
So what was the program about? Like, what did you do when you got there? Like, can you like walk the listeners like through like what the experience was like getting there, and like kind of what are some of the things that you guys do?
We got on a plane, me and my mom, and I was excited. Like, I was happy. I think she was terrified, but like smiling her way through it.
Right.
But like, yeah, there. Hang on, lost my train of thought. All right. Well, once we got there, the some of the people that worked there, we had, I can't remember his name, but all I know is he was the logistics manager for the entirety of Aspiro.
Right.
When concerning to like the vans and stuff. He was a really tall dude, and we took it to like where we get our clothes and stuff, and he gives us $15, and that's like our meal.
Yeah.
It's like you can go anywhere, $15 is the limit on stuff. So people were going like in and out. I chose Chick-fil-A. And, like, I don't even think I still even ate it all because I was just like, I'm not really even hungry right now. I'm just, like, just kind of wanted to eat because everyone else was.
Yeah.
But we were in the van, I'd say, like, 5 hours just going back and forth because we ended up forgetting our snow boots because, like, we didn't know if we would need them. So we had to, like, heading down to Mount Mitchell and then Mount Pleasant. Sorry. That was the place where it is. It's like 3 miles out of Salt Lake City.
Yeah.
So we had to go back to the place that's like 2 miles away from Salt Lake City. But it was like they had different locations. The start of it all was kind of just like overwhelming. I think I slept through most of it because I had gotten all my stuff pretty early on. Like, they do a backpack check if you can carry the backpack. Like, they even know your weight, but they don't know your strength. So, depending on, you get a different backpack color, like blue if you cannot carry the full weight, and they need to distribute your food through the counselors or through all the other students.
Oh, wow.
So, we never had that happen because we just, like, the counselor was just like, I'll take it.
That's pretty cool. It's good teamwork.
Yeah.
What are some of the things you learned while you were there? So you're out in the wilderness. You're going from place to place in the van. So you guys go to a spot. You set up camp, and you just live out in the woods?
Yeah, so we have itineraries, and that's usually determined by the therapists agreeing on something.
Yeah.
If we've been good in social dynamic, we can do something like mountain biking and rock climbing and stuff like that. But other than that, it's either a really long backpacking trip, which is where we get our poop tubes. And basically just backpack. Here's one place they go. Here's one group. They park their van, like I'd say 12 miles away.
Yep.
We park ours here. We basically backpack through the week to there. It's not really 12 miles. It was longer, but basically it's like a van switch. We meet halfway, and we're just like counselors, just like patting like. Shady deal patting off the keys to each other,
right?
And then we just continue.
And then, so what was the objective for you? Like, what did you want to get out of that journey?
Well, it was always I killed it on hikes. I loved being in the front, but I was self-proclaimed team leader in the sense that anyone was feeling bad, I just kind of reconciled with them. Yeah. On an area, or if they were struggling, I would like help them get up because backpacks were heavy. So if you kind of just like didn't throw it off and then you sat down, then you're like turtling yourself.
Right.
So it's like they were pretty heavy, 50 pounds at least, I'd say. But
what was the biggest takeaway for you? Like on that whole entire trip, you were out there for how long? 65 days?
She would know better than me.
64 days.
64 days. What was your biggest takeaway from that experience?
The fact that I'm really good at rock climbing, and also that
We sent him away for 64 days to learn how to rock climb.
Nice. Love it.
Backpack, yeah.
Love it. Carrie, if you found backpack and you can rock climb like a boss.
Yeah. No, it was mostly just biggest takeaway was gaining self-motivation and stuff.
Yeah.
I think that was like the first time that I realized with like even with Zach, it like kind of comes back up with the more art than scar stuff that like I'm not the only person in this world. I may have to share it with other people and may not like it, but I should at least lend a hand if I'm able.
Beautiful, man.
So
that's pretty cool. So when you got back from this wilderness experience, when did you decide that you were going to go to Black Mountain? Was it right after?
I'm pretty sure Ann's found something else again, and we waited a month. We did a month.
Yeah, after him being gone that long, because it was hard to not, have your child, one of your children, leave. we knew that we wanted him home for a little while.
Yeah.
The typical student will go to Wilderness and transition right into a therapeutic boarding school or a therapeutic rehabilitation center, whatever. But we wanted him home.
Yeah.
We wanted. Our oldest son was graduating high school, and I was like, he's not going to miss his graduation.
Yeah.
We're going to the beach. We're going to have time as a family together again. So we kept him home for a month, and then he went to boarding school.
What change did you guys see when he got home from that?
Gosh.
Like, kind of share, like, maybe the experience of, like, from your perspective, like, from the beginning of Buckley's life when you guys realized, like, okay, there's something that's not right here. And, yeah, just share what it was like.
Okay. Well, yeah, Buckley's always, I mean, he's always been different in the sense that he had developmental delays, crawling, talking, his eating habits. Everything was delayed. He was behind, which I didn't think it was that big of a deal, honestly, because I was like, well, he's a boy. Boys are slower, and my oldest had just done everything so fast, which I thought Partman was the weird one.
Right.
I thought something's wrong with him. He's going way too
skipping. Smart.
He's skipping parts, and I thought Buckley's just transitioning through the normal process. He was diagnosed with failure to thrive because of eating issues. Didn't grow for like 9 months or something like that. It was a long time. He had eczema. He had all these allergies. I mean, there was seemed to be always something. He had nodes on his vocal cords. Had to start speech therapy when he was 3 because no one could understand him. Yeah. So he was a very high energy child. He seemed very happy. He's always smiling and running around. I've said it before. He was like flubber that gets out of, that is on the loose, and he's kind of bouncing off the walls everywhere. So we knew he was hyper, didn't have any learning disabilities, incredibly smart. And I didn't really think about the social stuff because he had an older brother who he always had to play with. And, so he didn't seem, I mean, he did play by himself. He did like to isolate in his room and play with toys or whatever he was doing. So he did like alone time. But I guess the climax was, 6th grade is when we found out, and we found out by accident, like he mentioned. We had him tested for dyslexia per a teacher recommendation, and when they were revealing the results, she did mention, well, since he's on the spectrum.
Right.
And I was
Were you offended by that, like when she first said it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, because I can imagine, like, from a parent's perspective, like if someone were to tell me, like put a diagnosis or a label on my kid, I probably would be pretty defensive.
I was very offended and shocked, and because the only thing I knew about autism was Rain Man, that movie, and repetitive robotic speech, and usually a savant and something. Definitely doesn't look at people's faces. Definitely not.
Yeah, sure.
You had this idea of what autism was, and so for her to mention that, and I was like, no. And then she stepped out of the room, brought me back some information, and just said, something to consider. I think he's on the very other, Asperger's. It was still, that term was still used at that time.
Yeah.
So I came home and told my husband, and Steve and I were like, no, there's no way. We both kind of like, oh, that's insane. That's crazy. She doesn't know what she's talking about. Buckley's awesome. He's very social.
Very bad about eye contact. Oh, I mean, I can see it. I can see it.
Yeah. He wasn't still long enough to have eye contact. But I guess about 3 weeks, we kind of marinated on it, and Steven said, it's not going to hurt. Let's figure it out. So maybe whatever. So we had him tested, and the results were he was considered Asperger's. So then you're like, okay, now what?
Yeah.
Now what does that mean? And living here in Mississippi, there's not a lot available, and there certainly wasn't then.
Yeah.
That was 2012. So we, did the best we could. We found a therapist who specialized in ADHD. Was about as good as we got.
Right.
And we kind of worked with that. And he worked with some it's the ABA therapy is the type of therapy that was implemented with him. And didn't really see that big of a change, although Buckley was more vocal and talked about things. But there still was, I don't know, I felt like we were being proactive, but
Right.
looking back, it was a considerable waste of time. Because it really didn't address a lot of things. And we were, like most parents are, we were focused on the school and academic part of it. Well, is he, he's got to do well. And he was smart, but, when he's not paying attention or the social distractions or not being understood and not able to communicate with teachers at times, because he would get real frustrated. And he would act out.
Yeah.
He got in a lot of trouble at school.
Especially at pro.
Couple of fights. He ran away from school one time. He would crawl under desk, hide if he was upset. And he'd, throw chairs down the hallway. And just a lot of frustration, and couldn't really explain why. It just, to the teachers, he looked defiant.
Yeah.
And not, just shutting down. And when it could be about he didn't understand an assignment and he didn't know how to ask, or if he asked, they would, say, well, I already told you, read
Right.
the instructions. So it was hard, and he felt like, I'm doing the best I can, and he couldn't please anyone.
Do you think that was an ignorance thing on the teacher's part? Like, they just didn't know, like, they didn't have any training or understand, like, this is what he's going through, and, like, we're kind of, do you think that was part of it?
There was a meeting.
There was a meeting.
There was a meeting about my quote-unquote needs and, like, how we can all help him. And, like, I had my end of the bargain, and I thought I did pretty well, but it was a very one-sided deal.
You remember that meeting? You remember that?
I remember that
It was
meeting.
a very uncomfortable meeting.
Yeah, we did. We took his therapist to meet with the school to talk specifically about Buckley's needs, not just the dyslexic needs, but the Asperger needs. Right. And mainly, it boiled down to Buckley needed one person he could go to and have a safe space. Yeah. Meaning, if he was overwhelmed in class because he didn't understand, or if because social things going around him, because sixth grade, you're very social. It's all about friendships and inclusion and being just alike. And if he didn't understand what was going around him, he was picked on because he was odd. He didn't fit in. He didn't know how to talk the social talk, and he didn't really want to go and do things with people. He'd rather be at home playing with his toys or whatever. So we brought the therapist to the school, and from where we stood, we assumed that the needs would be met. Yes, they were willing to do this. These are the accommodations for the dyslexia part. This is what we'll do. If he, the main thing was Buckley's job was to communicate that. Yeah. That, okay, I need a timeout, or I need to get out. I need to go. Let me just go do my work in a room by myself. Because he actually did really well in those situations. He, being able to, because he was smart. Here's your assignment, and no distractions around you. He did well with that. But that didn't last very long.
And this is a paid school, by the way. So
it's a private school.
So for the listeners listening, this isn't like a public school that they were going to saying like, hey, these are the accommodations that we need. This is like an education that you're already paying for.
Correct.
And so like the intent of it was like, hey, listen, like we're gonna pay for the tuition here, but what we need from you is like whatever. So I feel like in a way like that was a huge disservice to your family, like a huge disservice to you guys, because it's like you want what's best for your kid, obviously.
Yeah. And our other child was at this school too, so of course you want your children together, and we really thought it would work because there was an agreed upon, and I definitely think it was the minimum of expectations for them to do. It was a lot. It's a lot to ask when this is not a therapeutic school. It's just a private school. So it was a lot to ask, but they agreed, and it just did not work. They didn't follow through with any of it.
It turned into detention.
Yeah, he was labeled, as defiant and was given detention to correct.
Yeah.
And one thing about children or any people on the spectrum is, it's kind of, they see things this way and I see things this way, and I can go, okay, this is what they expect from me, so I'm going to do it because it's going to keep me from getting in trouble. Yeah. And whereas Buckley, some of it didn't make sense to him, what they were asking of him to do, so he just wouldn't do it because it wasn't rational. And you know how when you're a kid, you have to follow your rational adult rules sometimes, and they can't, because I said so kind of situation.
Yeah.
Well, because I said so is
the worst explanation I could ever have.
So how was that for you, Steven, as a father? Like, I think, like, as a dad, for me, like, when I'm trying to get, like, my sons to do something or whatever, and it's like, I think that would be difficult. Like, you're trying to discipline your son, but, like, maybe the discipline that you would do with Parkman is not going to be the same that it would be for Buckley. So how was that for you? Like, trying to find, like, the right way, I guess.
It was incredibly difficult. My biggest problem as a typical male is I just want to fix it. Show me the problem. I'll find some way to fix it or deal with it, or we'll make it go away. Just whether it be, Buckley's approach to being disciplined or what have you. And early on, looking back, I was kind of the he'll grow out of it kind of thing. Even after he had the diagnosis of Asperger's or being on the spectrum, and you don't grow out of those things. It's a time thing. As a lady in at Aspiro, one of the famous quotes was, "It may take one experience, it may take 100, it may take 1,000, it may take 10,000. They'll eventually get it." And particularly Buckley, because the one thing he has is empathy, which apparently is not something that all.
No, it's expression of empathy.
Yeah. Correct. He cares.
He can express it.
He truly cares.
Autistic people are absolutely empathetic, but it's usually so internal. They feel everything it's amplified. But Buckley could express empathy towards others. Like,
was he emotional? Like, were you show emotion? Like, with all the stuff that was happening, was he
definitely?
Yeah.
I would just throw my hood on my head, just to, like, not look at them, because, like, it always seemed like I was smaller. So it just seemed like a threatening force, just kind of like leering over me, telling me I'm doing something bad. So I was just kind of like shrink down into a little ball and just kind of hide away. And it got to the point even at prep that I was just like, "Oh, you can't wear hoodies anymore."
Wow. Wow. And for you, that was just a safety mechanism, right? It made you feel safer.
There was one time where I just didn't move, and they called my mom to come and get me. So.
He and I was like, "Why didn't you just tell him?" And he said, "Well, I felt like that it didn't matter what I said; it would be the wrong thing, and I was just trying not to get into more trouble." Right. So they viewed his silence as defiant, when really he was just trying to just stop the madness. Yeah. He was trying to be accommodating, and so it all backfired. That was the hardest part, because what he thought was working, what he would try to do once things happened, it just looked to them like he was being difficult and defiant. And
do you think it would have been that way had you guys been, like, say, in California, where there are more resources, where people are more, like, as you hear about, like we were talking about with Jenny McCarthy talking about, like, vaccines are what cause autism and this and that. It seems like more people are aware of, like, they're more willing, I think, to accommodate and not be as, like, no, you're going to conform to our way and, like, that is it. Like, it seems like they're willing to make more accommodations for people. Sometimes that's they go a little off the rails with that. But do you think it would have been maybe different if you guys were somewhere else, if it wasn't in Mississippi?
I will say this. I feel like Mississippi is a problem. I feel like it's just... Yeah, any state probably would have been better.
Really?
Any state. Just because there's no good schooling system like here. If you're not in a public, if you're not in a private school, there's, like, you have no say in, like, basically how it goes. And but definitely in California, where it is
Now you have to remember this was 2012 as well.
Yeah.
So it is not. Autism is definitely now more in the public eye, and not just about the increase in the number of diagnoses, but that there are people who are neurodiverse. They think differently. They're not broken. They're not, disabled. It is a different mindset. The way they view things, it's a wiring.
Yeah.
It's the way they approach life, and I think there's more knowledge. Like now, there's more available now. Like Canopy
even in
Children,
Mississippi, yeah.
even in
Yeah,
Mississippi, Children's Canopy Services has a whole. They used to deal with foster children who didn't have homes and stuff like that. They dealt with other side of children's care needs, homeless children and stuff. But they have a whole wing now for autism, and they're doing well. They're all about early intervention. So they have something in place. Is it perfect? No, because it's in its infancy stage, but it's trying to get better. But at that time, I think if we would have been either Utah, California, they've got it going on for sure. Yeah. The programs that they have are unbelievable, and North Carolina has a lot to offer.
There are like no less than 6 wilderness programs just in Utah itself.
Oh wow!
Well, just I think child psychology, Buckley's assessment that he got in Utah was unbelievable on what. And they spent time with him, I guess, when you came in on those
the testing.
Yeah, the lady.
So we did 2 weeks. We did one really early and then one really late, and it was like 5 hours a day. Right. It was a lot of stuff, and it was a lot of repetition, and it was boring, and I hated it, but I got Gatorade, so there.
So I want to get back to that question I was asking you, Stephen, about like being a dad and like what the dynamic was in your family. And for the listeners that are listening, Stephen's also a doctor, so like that I have to ask you, like, if you get the diagnosis like, hey, your son is autistic or he's on the spectrum, what like you want to fix things as a man, you're like, I want to fix this. So, like, were you like reaching out to doctors? Were you trying to like do all the research and figure out like how you can like fix it? Like what in your family dynamic was changing, and how'd you guys deal with it?
Well, I think everything was changing because at that time, Buckley, we ended up learning later that therapy once or twice a week is not enough. You need it basically every single day. That's why Wilderness works. That's why Black Mountain Academy works. And it just helps him, learn themselves or detach. I'm sure not everyone does as well as Buckley has done because it's a full 180. But my biggest frustration is now, full disclosure, I'm a gynecologic subspecialist, so I know nothing about. My wife has forgotten more than I know about this because at first I was kind of like, well, yeah, no big deal. Buckley, why do you keep doing this? I just couldn't understand why, if you do it today, why you do it tomorrow. And Christy just finally looked at me one day and goes, you just don't get it, And then I finally, read a little bit as I should have, because I didn't really get the 1 time, 100 time, 10,000 time. Just this is not working, so stop doing it. The teachers have shown you the rules. Just do it. You can talk about.
Suck it up was a huge term used.
Well, for sure. As a dad, it makes sense.
For instance, there are more polar bears, in the world than there ever have been. But if your teacher thinks polar bears are dying, by God, write about it. You know what I mean? Yeah. By the polar bear thing. You learn to play the game, and he's very. Very literal, very black, white, and such as that. And it was frustrating to knowing we didn't have much here in Mississippi, and even if you go to public schools, they tend to. In Jackson, I don't really know what there is in Jackson. There's really not a lot of good public school options in Jackson for us. Thought about moving to Madison, but I think there, even kids get put more toward special education. It's not like they got some, here's our high-functioning, Asperger's or high-functioning autism. Here are more autistic kids. That there's not that. It's, I'm blessed to have had the means to do what was necessary, or borrow the means to do what's necessary. But that was the hardest thing for me to. Going out of our way at the private school to try to make it work for Buckley there because he wanted to be, with his brother, and then, have that, we'll do it. And it's hard. I get it. Okay, but don't tell me you can do it. And then all of a sudden, after we come back to school, he's now going to go to detention. And I mean, of course he's going to live in detention. He will not change. He's not going to learn from detention. He will be in detention every day. And so that's when there's another private school here called New Summit, which has, we end up leaving that private school.
They now have a place specifically at Spectrum Academy.
Oh, nice.
So they now specifically have
Prep?
No,
No,
New Summit.
New Summit.
So they have school. They have a environment specifically for autistic kids.
Right.
And
That's
you go
awesome.
to the Spectrum Academy, and it's for the younger. I mean, they don't, like I said, this is past.
Yeah.
We missed the boat on.
I think we helped the boat. I think we helped.
Maybe
we helped build the
I don't
boat a
know.
little bit.
I don't know, but now, like I said, there's way more in place now than there were. And I know just regarding the dad part and the husband part and father part, there was a lot of anger. There was a ton of anger that all of a sudden we were put in a parenting role where we literally had no control.
Yeah.
We couldn't write a check to make it go away. We couldn't sign him up for anything to make it go away. We couldn't discipline it out of him. I mean, we took privileges away. We took,
It did
food,
nothing.
everything, and nothing changed. Nothing worked. And it was frustrating because how we parented our other kids, we could just threaten to take away
Take away your phone.
and take away your electronic privileges, and that was all.
Yep.
It was. There was rarely any grounding.
I can entertain myself with a plastic bag for hours.
Our biggest,
Right, so he was not worried about having privileges taken
whether it
away.
was before or after the diagnosis, we used to say, you know what? I don't know when I'm going to die, but I want to have one day the way Buckley lives it. Because you could literally, you could put him in that corner and he would self-entertain. You know what I mean? You couldn't.
He might count the.
Yeah, you couldn't take enough things away from him to make him be miserable. I mean,
Yeah.
it was one of those.
That's true. He
Eternal
was
optimist,
the
or maybe
happiest
he
person.
just thought differently. You couldn't. You couldn't beat it out of him. You couldn't take it away out of him. You couldn't restrict it out of him. You couldn't. It's just.
Sending him to his room was not punishment
Yeah.
at all.
It was the biggest favor. Yeah. Just like if a party's going on and I'm like acting out at the party, he could probably worst thing you could do, make me stay at the party.
Right. Is there like a
Send me into
the way that your mind works? Was it like, were you ever like depressed? Were you like sad, or were you like, you know what, like
I had a little bit, but that was all before, and I'm still on. Technically, I'm on antidepressants.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but like I was never suicidal. I didn't see that. I was just like, that just seems like the stupidest thing anyone could do.
Yeah.
Just like it's just like.
So you always seem to find the silver lining.
Yeah, I'm a very happy guy. Smile on my face all the time. But
What is that one? Because you did. When was that? When he wrote that letter, and we went.
that
oh
was
my.
homeschool. Yeah.
Okay, but I just remember I went. I was literally scared. I mean, I literally thought he's going to kill himself.
An emergency call with his therapist.
Yeah, and I went down there and talked to him. I go, Buckley, are you good? Are you
like,
gonna
yeah.
come? He's like, I go, are you gonna hurt yourself? He goes, why would I do something like that? But this is the way the letter read. You know what I mean? Because I was panicking, and he knows. We obviously have guns. We live in Mississippi, and he knows how to use them. But he's like, no, why would I kill myself? It's crazy.
So he was just like externally processing, like writing a letter, like about what he was feeling, and then
Well, he wrote us a lot. I guess writing down. That's one thing.
It feels easier to.
Roe Hunter was
Yeah.
was his therapist at that time, and he suggested, for Buckley to write down when he felt overwhelmed or upset or just because he can communicate his writing ability is beautiful, and he's very articulate anyway, and he's mature in how he expresses his what he feels, his
Big
feelings.
words.
Yeah, big words. And it was frustrating. We were having a bad moment in homeschooling. Buckley lost. He wouldn't get out of bed. I stayed in a chronic state of, I'm a failure. I'm a terrible mother. I can't even get my kid to do schoolwork. All I could think of is like, here I have this 8th grader, and he's shut down. He's already bigger than me. I can't pull him out of bed, and that's what I tell him. I'm like, I can't hold your finger to the paper to make you do this assignment. I can beg you, I can teach you, I can do all of that, but I can't make you do anything anymore.
Right.
And he would just like, it's stupid, I don't want to do the assignment. And he just wouldn't do it. And I internalized that as my failure, that I was supposed to motivate my kid. I was supposed to, it's my fault that he's not thriving.
Right.
So I cried a lot. I was depressed. I couldn't be a wife because I was consumed with, what do I do for my son? I couldn't be a parent to my other kids because Buckley needed me more than they did. So
Right.
I was pretty much consumed by the care of Buckley, of trying to get him to do one assignment. It would be like, yes!
Yeah.
It would be like a big victory. So it was one of those moments where he just had not done a week's worth and had lied to my face about it. And he went through a big period of lying. And all I had to do, and I'm like, Buckley, I'm going to open this computer up, and I'm going to see if you did this assignment. Are you sure? And he was like, yep, I did it. And, of course, I opened it up, and there was nothing.
Right.
And I would just cry. I'm like,
It's coming to a head. He's coming into puberty. We're
Yeah.
in 8th grade.
Yes.
We're starting to.
he was getting
It's been bad. It's been bad. It's
anger.
been frustrating. It's been.
He was having more anger.
a little more physical.
Yeah, he would throw things at me and yell and scream and be destructive. He'd tear things up. He'd tear his room up
Right.
frequently when he would get angry. He would, the bed, just the
Do you remember
sheets.
that? Do you remember like getting angry and like throwing stuff?
She
and-
was sitting on the stairs one time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, what was going through your head during that time? Were you like just couldn't control it? Were you thinking? Were you?
It definitely wasn't directed at her. It was more directed at me. Just like I like basically it's just like, why do I continue to do all these things? Why is it always me, the one that is always in this position? Because like with Parkman, my older brother, was just like little early joke where him was like, he's the perfect child. No, like everything early, like she said, like everything was fine, and then suddenly it's just like, I'm the I don't know, but I guess the word would be, joke of the family, but it's just like, hey, here's all of the hereditary and other stuff problems. It's just like all balled up into one kid, and it's just like, why is it always me? I'm the one always in trouble. I get in trouble more than Wynn, Parkman, and Amy combined probably in 1 year than they have in 5.
Right.
So
And you didn't know how to control it. You didn't know how to like stop.
I didn't know what I was doing wrong.
Got it.
It just felt like they said with the hood, it's just like it was two evils. Neither of them were the lesser. They were both great. They were both getting me in trouble, but I didn't ever think to like look on the. I would always try to look on the bright side of it, but it was just like basically just I became to get into the mentality of, if I don't try, I can't fail.
Yes.
I like that.
Because it's like, there, everyone's appeased.
Yeah.
Everyone's
so he
happy.
Just wouldn't do it. So if there was an assignment or a module we were on that seemed difficult and he couldn't grasp it the way I was trying to teach it, or the way the program we were doing was trying to teach it, he would just decide, I'm not going to do it, so therefore I'm not failing.
Right.
And I'm like, no, that's actually failing because you're not trying.
No,
So
but the
that-
thought process is like brilliant though. It's like, well, yeah, like okay, I just
Right,
won't-
you can't fail at something
can't
you
fail,
don't
try.
do.
Right.
And
So-
what was the other funny thing that it was funny now, but how there may be two ways to skin a cat, but his is right, and you have to acknowledge it.
Oh, yeah.
Like in working
I
problems
loved
or
being
whatever,
right.
like if a teacher would want him to, he would
Lesser than or greater than?
He would get the right answer, but it wasn't
Oh.
done correctly.
Hold on, we got to
Yeah,
share
yeah.
this story.
Here's a great story about me at prep with stuff. So I liked things to be my way, but it was also just because I didn't understand really well.
Autism's people have rigid thinking at times where you know
Right.
it's all about
I
controlling
like
the environment.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. But lesser than or greater than, like alligator, bird, and all that. Like that's like the way it was taught. So I made everything alligator this way, and apparently I got a lot of them wrong. And it was just like, but they're all right because I flipped the problems around to make
So
it
it's
work.
like 5 is greater than 2,
Right.
or it'd be 3 less than whatever. And
Yep.
he changed all of it to where they all said greater than. So he rearranged the problem. He was not wrong because technically he was still correct,
Right.
but he redid the test to to look like
the way that he wanted it to look.
Yeah.
And the answers were still correct. I mean, the
Right.
answers were correct, but of
But the
course,
signs weren't.
yeah.
But
Right.
the
because he
sign-
rearranged the problem
But
to
yeah.
make it fit what he rearranged it to fit what he wanted.
And you know,
he
and-
didn't adjust to
And
what.
then I threw a
that's
chair.
the whole thing, the adjustment and like just he had very rigid thinking.
Yeah, and then I threw a chair,
And then he
I
threw a
didn't
chair.
understand, and I just like, and they couldn't explain why it was wrong. It was just wrong. It just wasn't correct. You didn't do it correct. It was just like, but the answer is the same, just worded differently. Just like, how is that different? It's math.
That's got to be like frustrating, you know what I mean? To know, like, in your mind, like, and in our mind, like, if I'm looking at that problem, it's like, that problem's right. The way that you did it was right. I just didn't do it the way they wanted me to do it.
Yeah.
That has to be maddening for you,
It was
man.
same issues with not showing work
Oh.
because he does math in his head, so he
Yeah.
doesn't do the 5 steps maybe that
'Cause
that
it's
most
just-
people are taught.
I write it big, so whenever I would do it, it was either, hey, show your work, and then like have to redo your work because I can't tell where the answer is because all the work is all over the place. And it's just like, and I can't tell where you went wrong, or then it's do it in your head, and then like, oh, you didn't show me your work, so here's a 0.
So it's the idea of 24 in a class. He's the odd man out, so to speak. Still gets the right answers in a different way. Maybe he arranges it. Maybe he changes up the wording, or
Or he doesn't show his work.
or doesn't show his work and knows the answer. But it may be the same way in public school. But all I know is in rigid private school, which is fine for almost everyone, but for the families out there who have, you know, spectrum kids that are high functioning like Buckley who can do well, there's no leeway. And I guess I get it. I'm not a teacher. God bless them. They're like nurses. I mean, that, you know, people that go into teaching and nursing, you know, for what they're paid and what they do, it just are police officers. You know, it's just completely our people in the military. It's just incongruent with what we ask of them or what they do, and then the way they're rewarded. And I get it. You know, I mean, I'm not there, obviously, but it's still the right answer. Not everybody's going to think the same or show their work or show all 5 steps. It's okay. Well, put him over there in the corner, make sure he's not cheating. If he's not cheating, I don't care how he gets it. I mean, some people we all arrive at things differently. You don't, you know, to me, there should be a little more leeway. It doesn't have to always be a straight line, you know, leading to things that are similar. You know, some
Totally.
people dot them or dash them or make them curly. You know,
Isn't that the way the Montessori like school works? Like where it's like they give you like kind of like a way to like problem
Montessori
solve
does
and
use
like
that. Yes,
where it's like it's not all rigid. It's like everybody has their own way of getting to the same
yeah,
kind of
they
answer.
teach that like the student dictates
Right.
how they're taught too. Basically, is that kind of thing. But going back to how, from our standpoint as parents, of what Wilderness did was, you know, you had at that point we were in crisis mode because there was no communication, lots of falling apart, lots of
thought it was my phone.
Bucky's getting text
He thought it was
messages
my
over
phone. Dude. He's over here getting my phone. I got mine on silent.
I can't hear that way, so it kind of seemed
Anyway, I'm
like
sorry.
both.
Well, you know, when we got to the Wilderness, because Wilderness is a very radical decision.
Oh, totally.
So
Everyone should do it. Just saying.
But getting there where he was rigid in his thought processes. There was no explanation that I could give, or really anybody could give, that suited him, because it wasn't he wasn't hearing it the way he wanted to hear it.
Right.
So when you're that locked down, you're at an impasse.
Yep.
There's I couldn't come up with enough ways to explain something.
Yeah.
So there's constant frustration. He like he said, he felt like I don't know why I keep doing this. I'm doing something wrong, but I don't really know what I'm doing wrong.
Right.
And all I was doing was coming from it like, I just wish you would listen, and this is the only way I know how to explain it. I don't know how to explain it any other way. You know, I'm a mom, I'm a nurse, I'm not a teacher. You know,
Right,
I don't know
yeah.
how to teach you. You know, so it was basically like we were running into the wall every single day. You know, anything we came across, whether it be what he was going to eat, no, didn't want to eat that. Bedtime, no, I'm not going to bed. Get up and shower, no, I'm not showering. Anything, everything was a battle. Everything was a battle. He wouldn't do his homework, so he kind of shut down, and I'm like, he's going to fail. He's going to fail. We're behind. Plus, he had started getting physical and destructive in the home.
Right.
And it was causing tension in our marriage.
Yeah,
a
I
lot
can
of
imagine.
tension because Buckley and I had a codependent relationship.
Yep.
He required me to feed all his needs, and I felt like that's what I was supposed to do.
Right.
Like, I believed it was my fault if he wasn't motivated, that it was my fault. And he would say, "You're not motivating me." And, like, I don't know what to do. And he was just like, "This is not okay. We can't do this. This is not going to work." And he told me, he's like, "I don't care what happens. We will not get divorced over this." And
That's
not
awesome.
that there was a threat of divorce, but there was definitely
It's got to be a lot of tension.
a
And almost like,
chasm being created in
Yeah.
our marriage because I felt like, I became defensive of Buckley. And, anytime Stephen got onto him, I was angry at Stephen, not angry at
for what Buckley had done. Yeah.
what he happened.
Right.
I was mad at him. Like, you don't understand him. He's blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I really overcompensated for him because I wanted to protect him and I wanted everything to be okay. And
It became horrible enabling.
yes.
And that's like what a Spiro is multi-step. So while your kid's in the woods, the parents have homework too.
Yeah.
It's just like, here's what you're doing wrong.
Yes.
Yeah.
Here's how you can fix it, and you better fix it, or it's not going to work when he comes home.
Yeah, so having the pain of having your kid gone and then having the pain of the counselor conversations, the counselor phone therapy, the sessions with the therapist for us was learning like, wow, we are so part of this problem.
Right.
Yeah.
We are shortchanging Buckley. We've put him in this little category because he's autistic, that we've already decided he can't do that because he's autistic. Well, he can't do this. Well, he's autistic.
Yeah.
And we were cutting his knees off. We were cutting his legs out from under him.
Excuses.
We
Well, a lot of that too was
preemptively deciding something was too difficult for him or he wouldn't be able to handle it emotionally because he was autistic.
Right.
And I know early on when speaking of that, I guess being guys, we're more concrete, and she's around him every day, and I'm at work, so I'm, typically or at least in our family, Christy did more of the child rearing, and so I was more concrete in knowing that, not that I didn't care, but knowing that this was not going to work, and that and so with her being defensive because she's around him every day, and then I'm walking in with all these answers, because she really couldn't see the forest for the trees, and I'm less educated about it, but I'm still suffering from it. But knowing that there's got to be, this cannot, it can't continue. This is not going to work, and that's what we kind of, or we realized, there's got to be something else. And she finally came around to that. You know what I mean? You eventually end up on the same page, but you come at it from two different places. Less sympathetic, less nurturing. What do you know? You're not around him. Well, I don't know, but I know a year from now this can't be like it is now. He's almost 15 or whatever. And so I guess that's why you want to.
What are some things that you would have done differently? Like, looking back on what you know now, what would you have done differently? Like, and the reason I'm asking that is not to go through a place of like regret, but from a place of like, what about the parents that are out there that are experiencing the same things and have like little kids, and maybe if there's something you can share with them, like, this is something I wish I would have done differently, I would have caught sooner. What would that be?
You have to think radically, and you have to think outside the box. You have to be willing to do the hard things.
Yeah.
You have to
Think early.
You have to, early intervention is the best part, and it is honestly, it's an ego thing. We have these 4 beautiful children, and then we have this one child who, we're like, what is wrong? Why can't he just get it?
What was the word
I was
you used?
upset he didn't like baseball, because he couldn't stand still in the outfield and wait on the ball to come and take it his turn to, we all have
bugs.
we all have cookie cutter kind of. I think it all happens in due time. You just hope the price is not too great. I feel like, again, we didn't have there are more resources in Mississippi now.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I really can't speak to public schools. I know I have some friends and colleagues that have kids that are struggling.
My advice would be, don't prolong the misery. When you see, speaking of rigid thinking, we were rigid in our thinking and holding on to something too long that wasn't working when it was clear it wasn't working.
Right.
And that's with any child, as they age and mature and, social influences or whatever, you have to change your parenting.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't start parenting, an infant and you continue that form of parenting until they graduate, obviously.
Yeah.
So my biggest, I would definitely suggest be open to radical things and be united. Because if you start putting it all on the responsibility of either the father or the mother, you better figure this out. You're here. You have to figure what this kid needs because I'm working or I don't have time to deal with it. It's too much. It's too much for one person. It can totally drive a wedge. It can destroy marriages. It can destroy families.
Yeah.
Like I said, we all suffered from our own decisions. My decision to continue to try to do something that I was not capable of. I just didn't. I didn't have the resources. I didn't have the knowledge, and I wanted homeschool to work so bad because, I was like, I can do this. I'm freaking Superwoman. I can homeschool. I can educate this kid. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna educate my kid. That's I can do it. And when it stopped working, it was painful that I failed. Yeah. And in a way I failed, but in a way I didn't. I just wasn't meeting the needs that he had.
Right.
And I couldn't. And wilderness, putting him in that wilderness situation, because I remember when I picked him up from the end of those 64 days, or even when we went to visit him on day 44, was when the first time we got to lay eyes on him for the parent workshop. And Buckley told us I never remember. Well, first of all, he looked homeless because he was so filthy and dirty.
Yeah.
And we just bawled seeing our kid looking the way he looked. But
he was probably happier than that.
And he was so happy. He was it had been snowing that night, and knowing he's in a sleeping bag under a tarp. We were just bawling.
Oh, during parent seminar, that was by far everyone had double-headed dragon. That's a code word for vomiting and throwing up.
Diarrhea.
Vomiting and diarrhea at the same time.
Everybody got sick.
Everyone was sick. It was horrible, but it was the best week. It was literally just like, all right, well, we gotta figure out some way. It sucked. Like our tarps got dirty. We had to our vomit-filled sleeping bags. What a week.
But what he said to us, he was all smiles, and we were just like, "Are you okay?" Just kind of examining him.
Yeah, it's just negative 5.
He said, he said, Mother Nature is a good teacher. You cannot manipulate it. Yeah. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, you still have to do everything. You still have to do, no matter what. And so that helped. That constant, I can't change the weather outside. I can't change the setting, the environment I'm in. So that's what.
But I can change my mindset.
Yes, see that is where his growth came. I can't reproduce that here because I have my own. We had our own. He's our kid. We're gonna. Yeah. You can't sit the suffering. It sucks to watch your kids suffer.
Totally.
So we didn't get to see the suffering, and he. Like I said,
You've seen the benefits of it.
He's
got
that good outlook on life. He approaches life like, I got it, I can do it, or I'm just not going to try and I'm going to fail. So. But that's what the biggest change for wilderness, in my opinion, for him, and I'm sure he has his own thought because he has this whole mental process he went through. But what we noticed was, just like he said, he, for the first time ever, when he spoke to us, his letters were reflective of it. Was, he is not the only one. Yeah. He is a participant with others. He teamworked, had team working things.
I guarantee you they have my letters and I have all of theirs here.
Yeah, that's right.
Big, hefty.
Yeah. But we saw that progressive, that he was not being so rigid. He wasn't locking down. Because they weren't allowed to lock down. They would keep it from, just like I told you earlier, one story where you refused to eat and your field guide stayed up with you, wouldn't let you go to sleep until you ate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was second week.
Who won that battle?
They did. I was tired enough. I was just like, just
eat it.
That's awesome.
It's just
it's tiny steps like that.
I had to ask if I could reheat it, and they said yes. Will you eat it though? I was just like, fine. It was just like, and there was nothing like I didn't think about like, oh, I'm just gonna throw it on the ground, because then they're just being like, all right, make one again, make it again.
Yeah.
And I guess, circling back a minute ago, just thinking about wilderness and all that, the thing that concerns me most, especially for, I guess kids similar to Buckley, spectrum kids like Buckley, because so many of them are going to do huge things in society, but so many of them are, ostracized as kids, or people miss a diagnosis. I think if you're, as we talked about with Christian, I said, just think about it early. Don't be concerned about the diagnosis. What kind of bothers me is, the cost is tremendous. Not just the personal cost or the cost of other people in your family, but financially, and that's what probably, not personally. We were able to give Buckley what he needed from wilderness to Black Mountain, but it's not free, and there are so many, and probably for most people can't do it. I really don't know. There are plenty of people out there, but I know there are tons more that they just don't have anything. I mean, I know I just quit worrying about, we had insurance and things like that, and just
it wasn't covered for the
longest
time.
They don't cover family therapy. No.
Well, they
no
also
offense, but the people that need it most are the family. But I just quit fighting. The battles. Not that they should cover it. I mean, I get it. Pay out less than people pay in and things like that. But this is more curable than a lot of cancers, and they're young.
No,
Well, okay,
there
okay.
is no cure.
Yeah, there's no cure. I mean,
It's
There's
more
no
adjustable.
more
Please don't
treatable.
say that.
Okay,
But when you
it's
have
more treatable. I think you lose a lot because there's not. A lot of people are not, don't have the ability to capture all the resources that are available because they're not free. I mean, I'm not saying everything should be covered. I don't know the answer to that. I just know that therapy once a week is not going to get it.
we were talking about it earlier. What about the kids out there that have autism that are on the spectrum and they don't have the means to do some of the things that Buckley's been able to do, which is how can we fix that? There should be something.
Medicaid has there's a, I don't know the bill because we obviously didn't use it, but there's where if your child is disabled, once again, it's a label of disabled living at home, there is funding that goes towards the care. The problem is, paperwork has to be submitted all the time. You're drowning in paperwork to prove that your child actually needs this. Yeah. So then you have to wait for approval for it to be enacted, and you don't need to skip 1 week of therapeutic services, much less the weeks it can take to even get it. So there's steps towards it, and I know Trump just signed something about autism. I haven't read up on it. I don't even know what it involves, but I'm thankful for the conversation that's going on now that used to not. I honestly, when we first found out, I was not embarrassed, but maybe embarrassed, because it's I
think you're more frightened.
I was terrified, but everybody wants to know, well, what caused it?
Totally.
How did he get it?
It just happens. It just happens.
But that's still, there's still enough ignorance around about that. Oh, how'd they get it? Ooh, if my kid plays with your kid, are they going to get it too?
No,
what's your thought? What's your thought on that? Because we talked about it a little bit offline about vaccines and stuff like that, and we're like, okay, that's ridiculous. What do you think? Do you think there's something that people can avoid, or is it just something that's a genetic mutation that it just happens?
I do not think it's vaccines. Just because look at the amount of children that are vaccinated. That just doesn't make sense to me as a nurse. Yeah. And then
but now they broaden the spectrum.
Second thing that I do absolutely think plays a role is food. We spoke about that food and your diet, inflammation, gut health is the bane of everything. I think cancer. I think gut health is the most important part, and the problem with children on the spectrum, they have these sensory issues, so food textures, smells. So finding foods that they'll eat. Sometimes we would just be so happy if he would eat a bowl of rice. Just his diet was terrible.
Do you like sauerkraut?
No. What is that? What is that?
Probiotics, man.
What is even that? What is that?
It's fermented cabbage.
Yeah.
Ugh.
You wouldn't eat it?
You mentioning cabbage? No.
No vegetables, no fruit.
Oh, that's right. I learned that at dinner last night.
It's the antithesis of clean eating, which is unfortunate.
I think that gut health, and I do honestly, just looking at my family, parental and maternal sides, and his family, parental and maternal sides, I think there's probably a hereditary component to it.
I agree.
Possibly. I mean, we've got some crazies in our family.
Yeah, we do.
You know what I'm saying? No, I just
You're
I
one
say
of
that
them.
tongue in cheek. But there are definitely, I think I look back on kind of talking with my dad, and because we'll talk about Buckley, and he's like, "That sounds like me." Some of that sounds like me.
It probably just was never diagnosed because.
And I'm pretty sure.
Well, and a lot of.
I'm pretty sure.
A lot of. So I think it's both of those actually. I think it's gut health and inflammation that can, because that's autism. They have done scans of the brains of autistic
inflamed
persons, and there's inflammation going on.
Yeah.
So you wonder, well, if we get that inflammation under control, reversing symptoms. Because there are symptoms expressed with autism, and some of it is verbal, like because how is there such a wide variety? You have Buckley, who you would not necessarily know he was on the spectrum, and that's, people have said that, well, he didn't look autistic,
right?
What?
Or he doesn't talk autistic, and I'm like, what does that even
Well, because when I talked to him on FaceTime, the first time we talked, I was like, I would have never known unless you told me. I would have known. Like, we held like a normal conversation, and it was like, it was good to go. I mean, and I think the way that his brain works, like when we were sitting at dinner yesterday, some things he would say, or like his brain is thinking in the literal sense.
Yeah.
And even with the riddles we were doing,
Right.
Yeah.
he's like, just think of it literally.
But Josh, about 2 years ago this time, when things really started to fall apart, because you went to Wilderness February 28th, it'll be 2 years. I don't think we would have taken your call on FaceTime. I mean, really, that was it. It is a chasm. That's why we. Again, we talked about that, about the cost and all that, how that used to bother you about what it, just the burden it put and such. But I mean, it is unequivocally, having being blessed with the ability to do it, and knowing now, I don't care if I worked for minimum wage, if I knew where Buckley was before he left and where he is now after Aspiro and after Black Mountain Academy. I mean, I don't know. I guess I'd go all,
arm and a leg,
I'd sell drugs. I don't know. I would do whatever. I'd borrow money. I would call it. I'd sit on a street corner. I mean, I'm telling you, it is, and it was a huge financial
complete 180
commitment. But I mean, and I don't think we could have done it without it. And that's what pains me, because I'm grew up with mostly nothing, very, probably lower middle class, and not, just typical small town, a couple thousand people, didn't know any different, but my parents couldn't have done this for me.
Yeah.
No way. And then and I know I'm, I guess I'm a 1%er. I mean, it's, I'm able to do it, we're able to do it. And it just, I don't know. It bothers me now knowing where he is, to know some friends that have kids that are very similar to Buckley. They can't do it. They can't do it, and
this is what children need. It boils down to first of all, what parents want for all of their children is independence.
Yeah.
You want them to be socially responsible and respectful, be able to be independent, take care of themselves, and contribute to society.
Yep.
That's what we want. Yeah. That's the goal for all of my kids. I want them out of my house, living on their own. Yeah, and I want them to, be educated or trained to have a vocation that they can make a living off of, to care for themselves. I want them to be involved in their community, to give back to their community, and that's it. Yeah. And to have a good relationship, have some good social relationships, because we're not an island of one. Right. And what Black Mountain, what Aspiro Wilderness Program started was getting Buckley to figure out who he was, that he, okay, it can't just be my rigid thought process, and learning how there's benefit to teamwork, there's benefit to opening up. And I'm sure that was very terrifying when you're so used to everything being just like you have to have it, to trusting that, okay, I'm gonna have to give a little, because they would have team building exercises where they all had to work together. And like Buckley, do you remember
Skills camp.
Skills camp. Do you remember what's the one where, because they use your weakness and what you have to lead by. So what's it yours? Like you were the leader, but you couldn't speak. You couldn't tell people how to do anything. You just had to show them.
Yeah, that was it. Mama bearing, basically. Just give it
Buckley
to me.
will just
Give it to
take
me.
over and do something, do it his way, because his way is always right.
Yes.
So in the skills camp, they told him in order to lead, he could only like delegate.
I could only follow.
Oh, he could only follow.
In order to lead, I could only follow. I could not come up with the ideas. I could recommend.
Yes.
I could recommend.
How was that for you?
Sucked. But to even get our group into skills camp, we had to have. It was basically kind of like the mountain biking thing. It was basically like the therapist had to decide if your team was ready, if your group was strong enough, because it's a lot of things like different. It's basically an obstacle course for the most part. Like there's like
Physically strong, executive functioning issues, and social pragmatics. Those are the three things that Wilderness does with the autistic program. They work on social pragmatics, because you basically are living with this little group. It becomes your little family. You have to communicate with people. That's not always fun.
Right.
They don't like it. It's not a good thing, especially when they won't do what you want them to do. That's what we laughed. We're like, oh yeah, Buckley's going to go hang out with people who are just like him. This should go well. A bunch of rigid thought processing, literal speaking people.
What are your goals, Buckley? What do you want to accomplish? Like, is it like when you look at like your dad's life and your mom's life, is that like, do you envision for yourself, like in the future, like being married, having kids, having like a career? Like,
I see that, yes, but I do not think of the future that often. Like I have a goal. My most recent goal was getting a driver's license.
Yes.
I got that.
Yes.
I don't know what's next. Finishing school, most likely.
Yeah.
It's like I feel that it's just like I kind of learned just to take it one day at a time. Because even after Spear and all that stuff, that was always just a big worry. Because like I worry about the future. I catastrophize about like
What are some of the
goes wrong.
What are some of the thoughts that you're thinking though about, like, what do you think can go wrong when your thought was going down that, like, what's an example of like this could go bad?
There was my dad kind of touched on it, but I had like therapy sessions because I was always worried. Just like I have caused a lot of emotional stress and a lot of money, and I don't think I'll ever be able to pay it back. That hit hard on me. I didn't like. I don't know. I felt like I had some debt to pay, even though like it seemed like asinine to think it. It just really felt like it was just like I don't like the fact that I can't like if I end up amounting to nothing. If like even though we did all this stuff, what if it was all for nothing? Even though I'm great now and all that stuff, but it's just like, what if I don't make a name for myself, basically?
We had no clue that this is what he was feeling.
That's insane. It's
and
crazy.
So this guilt that he had adopted, that there's an expected payout, and, so we had I guess I was in a session with him, and Parkman.
I
our
was with
oldest
my
son,
brother.
Yes.
And he started touching on how like what my dad did for him and all that stuff, and then like suddenly I just started like a tear, and then like I was just like, shoot, they noticed. Yeah. So I was just like, and they were just like, bring it back, and I was just like, I don't want to. So but I eventually like said stuff about it, so like I'm even tearing up now, but it was, I mean, now all that is over and done with, and I'm thankful for it, but I do think that I do think that I will become something. How long it will take, I don't know. To be honest, I don't really care. Yeah. I just want to get through the day and then start tomorrow.
Well, what would you want to do if you could pick like a profession or something that you're most passionate about? What would it be?
Child psychology and like family therapy dynamics. I kind of want to be so I feel like people can connect best with people who have experienced stuff. You're just like, I know exactly what you're feeling.
Right.
It's like, and they do. Like, I want to either go work for the boarding school, be a wilderness instructor, be something like that. Just be help it or be a politician and like pass laws. It's just like, this is too much. It should be like a thing that everyone should be able to get.
Right.
But it's not the world we live in, so I'll just stick to helping them out.
Totally. So, like, are you, like, when you talk about goals, you said you don't look in the future, so what would be something like, how far ahead will you go? Where it's like, you know, like your license, how far ahead was that for you?
We set a goal for October, like in August or something. We set it in August, and like it became a point, like it just like the 2 months I was just no, I don't, just let me get it already. I'm ready. It was like, it seemed like kind of asinine. I was just like, first I had to get over the fear of being like, I don't like the idea of driving because it makes me feel like I'm growing up, and I don't like to grow up.
Really?
Other than it's like,
Yeah,
I'm
so
over.
That's been a big fear for him.
I'm over that,
Yeah,
and I've
definitely
come
over
to
it.
terms with it. I've taken the role of my older brother a little bit for now. For now, I'm not getting groceries every 5 seconds. Little errand boy, but
What would you want to share with, like, other kids that are on the spectrum? Like, what's something that you could, like, an insight that you could share with them to help make their life a little bit more, you know, not bearable, but more enjoyable, where it's like they can make the best of their situation?
here's the problem with that. I have no idea what any other person is experiencing, because it's like I can definitely say, just look past your own self and notice that you are not the only one suffering. And I, like, even in wilderness, I would always think back to, there's just like when I was doing football, and gosh, I hated football. But my dad would always be like, everyone's suffering, be the last person to get water. Don't be the person to fess up that everyone else is.
Not exactly. It's like if you're thirsty, I promise you someone else is. So if you just wait a few minutes, let somebody else ask, and then go get all the water you want, but don't be the first to cry.
Right.
To cry for water is my point. That was it. You know.
Yeah. Okay. So I butchered it, but
That was
still,
close
that was
enough.
in my head.
Close enough, yeah.
That was in my head still. But like that happened in wilderness. It's just like, you are not alone. And that's like important. Just know that, just like there will always be someone who can help you and someone who can understand you.
And he wants to understand you.
Yeah, and that person, you have to first know that you can understand yourself, which is something I didn't. So try to understand yourself first before you try to understand other people.
And how would you tell someone like me, that I've never been around someone who's autistic or on the spectrum other than you and like maybe a few other people? What's something that you could tell someone from the outside, this is how you can better understand me, or this is where I'm coming from, so you can kind of understand me a little bit better?
What means several different things.
Oh, yeah.
What either means, I didn't hear you, can you rephrase that, I don't understand.
Right.
So
he says that, like, I
be
would get
as
agitated.
specific as possible, and if they ask a different question, try rewording.
Right.
Just reword it. It's, again, different ways to skin a cat.
I used to think he just was not listening to me. Because we actually had this conversation
What?
incredibly recently, right? Like a couple of months ago.
Yeah,
you know.
in the car. Yeah.
Yeah, in the car. I can't even remember how it came up, but and he said, he was right beside me in the vehicle, and he said, "What?" And I was like, "Are you not even listening to me?" And he goes, "Mom, I am listening. That's not why I said what." I'm like, "Okay, you're gonna explain yourself. I don't know what you're talking about." And he said, "Well, sometimes I say what because I'm in my own headspace and I really didn't hear a word you said. I heard sounds, but I didn't hear words attached to it. Yeah. Or I didn't hear all of it. I only got pieces of it because it snapped me out, you know, or I just needed to rephrase it because I literally don't know what you're saying."
Yeah.
And that helped because we've kind of retrained ourselves, you know, instead of, like, if my other kids would say what to me, I'd be all up on their head, you know, you need to be listening to me when I talk. But I know now that when Buckley says what, or, you know, ma'am, you know, he's not ignoring me, you know. So I asked him, I was like, okay, we need different, what can't be the standard? You know?
But the thing is, that's all my brain thinks of is, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I was like,
What'd you say?
You know, I didn't hear you. Rephrase, you know, or I can't remember another way, or just.
Well, when you were sharing the story of that girl at school or whatever, it was like, hey, I'd like to, you know, date you or whatever. You know, what does that mean?
No, yeah. When had a person who liked you and
Yeah.
you know,
So she wanted to hang out with you, but you didn't understand what she meant by hanging out. You're like, well, what does that mean?
Yeah.
What are we gonna do?
Yeah.
Are you interested in dating like somebody? And if you were interested in dating them, do you think you would need to date somebody that is either A, on the spectrum so they understand where you're coming from, or could it be someone that's like just doesn't have the same issue? What would it be
For
you?
the second question, any fruit of the tree. I don't care. Female.
Yeah.
But why is that so funny to y'all? But no, Parkman, my older brother, I have seen the error in his ways and learned from it. So he knew how to pick them. I'm just gonna say that. I hope he watches this so he can know. But,
So you are interested at some point, like dating?
I am interested, but not now. I would say college, like when things can be set in stone. Because here's one of my main reasons, other than Parkman, is why would I want to date the worst version of you when you're going through the worst part of your life, and I am as well?
Right.
How about
So
we
about
wait till
teenage
this
years.
puberty gets through with, and we end up actually ending up going to the same college? Maybe like then after college we have to start seeing each other a lot more, and then it's just like, hey, let's get married. It's like, it just seems like, why would we start now when in 2 years we could be the exact opposite of what we love?
Right.
Yeah, it's like,
That's
And
pretty
that's what
brilliant.
happens most of the time. But it's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
the first people
No,
you
that's
dated,
brilliant.
you know?
there are not a lot of like, high school like relationships and then turns into marriage ones. Like our aunt is the only one I know. Aunt Yvette. That is the only one I know. They were
Right.
through high school, through college, through. It's
Yeah.
like that's
Sweethearts.
the only one I know.
And speaking of college and such, what Chrissy's always said, and speaking to parents who have kids of varying degrees, is it's a different time frame. You need to get out of the mindset of he's 14, he's been 8th grade, you're 16. You can't. Buckley's 17, he's back on track. He was a little bit behind. He went to summer school and got back on track. But he has a completely different time frame. Is he going to go to State or Ole Miss or wherever? I don't know. Maybe
Community college.
But yeah, right. Probably not right out of high school. For all I know, he might take a year off and then go locally here.
Go find myself in the Himalayas.
But my point is they're not on the same. They're not the regimented cookie cutter. Play baseball, play football, and that was my fault.
You keep mentioning cookie cutter, and I'm very confused.
What I mean by that is like, well, most people want their kid playing, baseball, football, basketball. Then we find the one that you do the best at. We stick with it. You play it throughout. It's
Go to
sports,
school,
it's
go to
great.
college, get a family. It's
All
a
right,
thing. Fine.
Got it.
Don't change lesser than, great than on tests. You just answer the test. I mean, no, seriously, that's what I mean. I mean,
It was a homework
sit
assignment.
Sit still in your chair, and for this 50 minutes, the bell rings. Go to the next class. You're out at 2:50. I mean, it's just we're into this, regimented.
That is an excellent advice situation for parents with children on the spectrum is please forget about their physical age.
Right.
That's not as important as their emotional and social age.
Yeah.
I put something on my Facebook page the other day, and it says, if your kid can work all these complicated problems and do all this so intelligent, but they can't take care of themselves, they can't get out of bed, they can't. They're not going to go anywhere in life if they don't know how to emotionally regulate themselves.
Right.
If they will have, there's no tantrums in autism, okay? They're not throwing a temper tantrum. They're having a meltdown. It just like he said, pulling the hoodie. He's doing self-preservation.
Complete shutdown.
Yeah. To self-preserve. So if they're not able to regulate their emotions, they're not going to be able to have a job. Yeah. They're not going to be able to go through, before that, the rigors of different college professors who could care less about that. So that's been the biggest, that was, I guess, our hardest lesson, honestly. Yeah. Once we got, okay, we accepted the fact this is what we're going to do. That was the last.
It was very evident.
That was the last obstacle to go for us.
It was very evident.
We're like, Buckley has. You know what? And I tell him all the time, your timeline is your timeline. He's 17. He just got his driver's license.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm like, I'm not kicking you out the door to go to college after you graduate high school. You know, do I want you to go to college? Sure, but that may not be on your plate for a while. I don't know what that looks like. And I'm not pushing him. Don't push your child into a situation that they're not emotionally ready to handle.
Equipped,
Or emotionally equipped.
We just don't want him 30 and still in our basement. It's basically, that's all. We've always kind of joked about that. We've joked about that.
So there is a timeline.
There is a time frame, but really not. But so.
It's very delayed.
Yeah,
Give it like 2 decades.
I wanted to touch on something too that you said earlier, that the 1 time a week therapy wasn't enough. Like going once a week is just not enough.
No.
Is that just for Buckley, or is that for family included? Do you think family needs to be included in that therapy?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
It's so you can sit there and talk to your therapist all you want, but unless the parent specifically asks, and if the child says that they're okay with it, the parent will never know what they talked about,
right?
Due to the laws that were binding it. But just having the parent there. It's or even if you want to show it to the parent, and you record the session or something, because technically if you allow yourself to do that and you tell them, it's legal. But not that that even matters. It's just the fact that I think we made the most breakthroughs when I did it with my mom, with my dad, with my older brother.
This is a family thing. We don't want him alone. He's got to learn how to interact with his family. And speaking earlier, when you know something's wrong, we kind of knew something was wrong when literally we had 3, then maybe 4, I guess, but you got one kid, Buckley, who at that time was literally every single day taking up 90% of the oxygen, and that's when you kind of look back. Well, you do, and you look back and you kind of go.
That's a metaphor.
I know.
Right, but Emmy win. They're just being totally cheated or not getting their fair share. Yeah, neglected.
Do you feel a little bit of that, Christy? Where it's do you feel any sense of guilt for putting your? I know that's a tough question, but did you feel guilt for the fact that Buckley got most of the attention and the other kids were kind of on the back burner while you were? Yeah.
Absolutely.
How could you change it though? If there's another parent in the same situation, how can they change it?
Help earlier. I mean, you.
Well, that, and you have to give yourself some grace, and coming to terms with you can't shoulder all of it.
Yeah.
Either as a mom or a dad, you can't shoulder all of it, and there are times in families that it would be no different, honestly, if Buckley had leukemia, if he was sick, if it was a health issue. Right. Of course, your resources, emotional, everything go towards the child who needs it, and you just have to. The problem is you just communicate within your family. I mean, it takes the whole family unit, because it could have gone a lot of different ways. Partman could have rebelled and gone, this is ridiculous. He gets all the attention. You don't even have time for me, so I'm just going to go and rebel. And he didn't. Our other 2 children could have done the same thing, and they haven't. We've all been, thankfully.
If anything, there was empathy for me.
Yeah.
I
mean,
they would stick up for me because they didn't understand either. They would just they felt that I was the side to agree on instead of them. I was mostly the problem, not them.
Right. Do you think you could have done anything differently as far as Steve and I were talking about the words that we make up, and unrestaurantable was one of them.
What?
Yeah.
When you were a child, we couldn't go to restaurants, and I think it was Jay Leno or somebody used to have where they made up words, and the word we came up with was, I was going to submit it, I think it would win, was unrestaurantable. We could not take you to a restaurant because you're crawling under tables and
run around, and if they didn't have the food you like, you'd throw it.
So do you think that was looking back on that, do you think that's the best way to deal with it, or would it be something we're gonna figure out a way to go to that restaurant so we're not kind of sheltering ourselves from experiencing things out in the world, because I know even with with my wife right now with our kids, she hates going to restaurants, hates it. She's they're gonna be losing their minds,
they're
it's
young.
just it's not fun.
Your kids are young, though.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's I feel like there's age limitations and then there's behavioral limitations. They are completely different.
But it
age
expresses the self the same way, though.
Yes.
Although you do get a hall pass if you have young ones and they're acting up. It's kind of different when you have, you know,
a 17-year-old
when they look like an adult and they're hiding under the table.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know how, because the thing it's almost selfish if you don't take into consideration their issues.
Yeah.
Whether it's noise, because I mean, there are some places Buckley can't go in because of a smell.
I hate going with her to cheer competitions. It's too
Yeah.
chaotic. It's too crazy.
It's loud.
That's mostly an autism
I guilted
thing,
him into
but
going because I'm like, you need to see your sister, and that was the stupidest thing. That was one of those parenting mistakes.
Absolutely despised it. My heart was just like, I was just trying to just like basically like tunnel vision Mom and Emmy into a picture, just cut it all out.
Is there anything that you feel like you could do, Buckley, as far as like getting yourself out of your comfort zone to where like you feel like there'll be growth in that? For example, like I would suffer from really
Put someone
bad,
in a
like,
wheelchair in front of me.
well, like, you know, like social anxiety. So I would be like, I'm really socially anxious. I don't like going to crowded places or whatever. So I just do more of that to get my brain used to doing it. Do you think, like, from your perspective, like, for example, like Emmy's cheer competition, if you were to go like to 5 of them, do you think at the 5th one you would feel less anxious at that 5th one than you were at the first?
It's okay. It's not really a question of anxiety. It's more of a question. I can definitely do it. I hate to do it, but if my mom says that I'm going, then I'm going.
But does it get easier for you is what I mean. Like, do you feel like as
the longer I'm there at the start, it's absolute hell. But the longer I'm there, it's like it's better. Like at Disney World is of course like it's a lot of people, but then it's just like this is fun. Let's do it again.
So I just wanted to know if our minds like work the same, where if you do things repeatedly, is it something where you can be like kind of turn the switch off a little, or turn it down, dial it down a little bit, where it's not as unbearable?
Time, I would say, I wouldn't say repetition. I would say time at one of them, because even like if I go to like the next one, even if there's a day in between, as soon as it starts, I'm like, stop.
Well, and there's so much that his brain is processing at the time. You know, when I have forced. And that's what I've done, literally. I've forced him because I'm like, you need to be there for your siblings. You need to be, you need to go watch Partner perform. You need to watch this. You know, they've supported you. You need to show your support for them.
Yeah.
And that's really unfair because we all have different ways of expressing our support.
Yeah.
But that's a bad mama mistake, putting your, But he, after going to one of those events, forced, and he would participate, but he would be exhausted afterwards.
What was going on in your brain? Like, what happens with your...
I want my room. I want my bed. I want my toys. I want to be alone.
But when you're there, though, what's happening? Like, when you're around, like say you're at your sister's cheer competition, what are you thinking in your mind? Like, what's going on in your mind that makes it, like,
when is this over?
But what's causing that, though? Like, is it the people that's making you feel like...
So there are hundreds of people, each of them having separate conversations, and I'm trying to hear every single word of every single one all at once. So I'm kind of forcing myself to do it.
So it feels like sensory overload?
Yeah, that's the best way to describe it, which is definitely an autism thing, because that was a big joke at BMA, just sensory overload. But it was when a lot is going on, we don't know what to do, and some of us just shrink into a ball, and other of us just kind of barrel through it and try to get through. And I kind of just kept barreling through it because I kind of picked up some stuff along the way.
Right.
But if before a Spiro and all
stuff, what do you mean?
If before a Spiro and you would have made me go to a cheer competition, what do you think would have happened?
You would have run away.
You'd run into the hills.
I wouldn't know where you were.
Wouldn't get out of the car.
I would have lost you.
Yeah.
So we talked a lot about Aspiro and doing the wilderness, but we haven't touched too much on Black Mountain Academy. I want to highlight that a little bit.
Alrighty.
So can you share like that experience, like getting there, what it was like assimilating into like the academy, like who you worked with there, what are some things that were good about it, what things were bad about it?
So first of all, it's a 9-hour drive for us.
Right.
We didn't fly. We drove.
Right.
9-hour car ride.
Yeah.
But it was a great 9-hour car ride. Me and my mom, we drove down there.
Up there.
Up, down.
Yeah.
What does it
No, it doesn't
matter?
So you get up there and
Yeah, down there. And we unload the stuff for big like skiing bucket thing. Like I don't know, like what
You
is
have
it?
to bring enough clothes for
A
like,
month.
Well, they give
It's a
you
month.
a list.
It's a month of clothes, basically.
Yeah.
A kid could like go without laundry for a month, and that's like
and they
the.
would be okay. So
Yeah.
that's what you have to.
But you
pack.
still do laundry.
Right.
So, because I stayed there for a year, but like, and then they count it. They go over all the stuff you have. They confiscate electronics, and then they get you to sign, and then like even when it's over, you like at the very end. I'm trying to get it to stop doing the thing.
yeah, I'll try to edit it out. It's okay.
All right.
Don't worry about it.
But it is. So for a while, it was weird. I had to like find like friends at first, and I didn't find like my good buddy Ryan for a while.
Yeah.
He was the kid can outwalk anyone. I'll say that.
Yeah.
That was what he would do in his free time. Just listen to music and walk around the building.
Yeah.
And he never got in trouble. Never. No one had any dirt on him. There was not a single time that he ever got in trouble the entirety of the time that I stayed there. He
Did
didn't
you?
Yeah. He didn't talk. But so for a while it was just kind of like let me figure out classes, and I don't remember a lot of the early stuff. It was like mostly like I started to get into D&D there because like that was something that a lot of people did, and I figured like, hey, this will be like the easiest way to like get to know people because
D&D?
Dungeons and Dragons.
Okay.
So, I don't know how to. Probably a lot of people know it, but I don't know how to explain it.
It's a computer game.
It
isn't
is
Board
no,
game.
It
Oh,
is a
board game?
tabletop game.
Tabletop.
There's
game,
a
yes.
difference.
I'm sorry.
It is a. Think of a choose your own adventure book,
Right.
but someone makes it, and then you follow the rules of it.
Right. Go ahead. Keep going.
Ooh.
There we go. Stand by. Yeah, I don't know why it's picking up the static.
I think it's because they're too close to each other, but
The microphones?
yeah. No, I'm saying the chords.
Yeah. Could be. Keep
Yeah,
talking. I'm
that
listening.
looked like you just fixed it by moving that cord.
Yeah.
All right, so back to the topic of friends there. So it was a rough patch at first, I would say, because I was trying to find it like my group. But for the most part, school was great because like they were so linear. It's just like every single class period, you can have 5 minutes, and you can take it outside. You can take it in the hall. You can go and talk to,
5 minutes for what?
5 minutes just out of the class if you've had
If
enough.
you got overwhelmed.
Yeah,
Okay.
just like they were very lenient, and if you needed 10 because like something really really bad happened or something, they would allow it, but you had to have something. But it was 5 minutes every class that you could do it. And just the teachers were amazing.
Is it regular classes? Are you taking like?
They were regular class. They were regular classes. We started off every morning of class with mindfulness.
Oh,
We did
nice.
15 minutes of mindfulness. They had a singing bowl. It was just kind of.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. I like it.
But that was and I love that.
That's
thing.
definitely part of their curriculum there.
That's really
it
cool.
is,
Practicing
like,
mindfulness.
Yeah.
It is semi-mandatory. Like you just have to be present for the mindfulness. You don't have to participate in it if you don't feel like it. But they recommend that because it does get you in a good headspace. And I didn't really understand it at first a lot, but then I really got into it, and I started leading some of them, and like that was really fun.
Do you do it now? Now that you're home, have you like taken that practice?
I
and
do
brought it home?
visualization.
What do you visualize?
The farm, our farm.
Yeah.
Because that's like I have a lot of memories of that place.
So it's like your happy place.
Yeah,
Nice.
but
So what was the difference between when you got to Black Mountain Academy and then when you were done with it, like a year later? Like what were the differences for you?
I was a lot more socially stable, I would say. I became socially stable because Yeah, I guess it kind of just comes with the territory. When you put a bunch of autistic kids in the same room together, they will fight and then they will get along.
Right.
Well, but also what Black Mountain provides is they do community service every
Yes.
week.
I have.
And that's mandatory. So these kids from the school go out to name some of the things that y'all did there.
So
I mean, it's
there's,
amazing.
of course, they considered More Heart Than Scars community service, which we
I
did.
absolutely love Zach. He's amazing.
He's great. I love him. He's a great guy. We did Hearts with Hands, which is like a disaster relief charity thing, and like we would do that every Friday for like 2 hours. I have something like 300 undocumented service hours
Right.
just from 1 year
Right.
at BMA. It is ridiculous. But like that was one thing we started our own garden like near Lake Tomahawk.
Yep.
Which like we were really close to. Like we really rehabilitated. We tore down the old fence, put up a new one. We pulled out all the weeds. It was just like it was a lot of dirty work. And like we did it in the rain sometimes. I mean, of course, everyone hated it, and I was just like, I'm kind of fine. Can we keep going? I get to chop trees down with an axe. This is the first time y'all have given me an axe. Let's go.
Yep.
So it's like it was
What was one of the best parts of Black Mountain Academy for you?
moving out of main house.
Yeah.
So there were independent living houses,
Oh, okay.
and so the independent living houses were, first of all, it was H House, and it was Montreat, and then they got, I can't even remember what
Mitchell
what was the last one? You know, the final house that they picked?
I don't know.
Conclave, whatever.
Right.
It was so there was two houses, so Mitchell and H, like the old independent houses, but it was away from main house, which it was like
The
that
main campus,
is where we do school, and it's
they
8
live.
people to a room,
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
and it's like it's here's your bedtime.
You all have to. You have to start there until you show your responsibility. You know, I mean, there's phase work.
Yes.
At that Black Mountain Academy, and
Right.
so once you,
It's different now, but it got different towards the end, and no one really liked the new system because, like, it was, of course, it's a new system, so we have to we have to learn something else.
Yeah.
But when I got into the independent houses, that was when I first found my friends there. Like I got Nate, I got Davis, I got Ryan. It was just like Max, Sam, Isaac, Izzy. Sorry.
Do you still keep in contact with all of them?
I try to text them. Sometimes I don't have anything back till like a month later. But
Right. What about social media? Are you into social media at all?
no,
Why not?
I don't have an answer just now.
You think you'll ever get on it?
Probably not.
Because the reason I'll tell you why I'm asking. Number one is this podcast is going to be heard by thousands of people
Yes.
all over the world. People are going to
Yes.
hear it, and a lot of people are going to see the video.
Yeah.
It'd be so awesome if even if you created your social media just to be about autism and on the spectrum, and created it where it's not so much about my name's Buckley and I'm eating this piece of food right now. It's more
Yeah.
about how, because you wanted to go and do child psychology, right? And you wanted to do
Yeah.
the wilderness stuff, and I feel like you could do. Social media is so powerful. There's a lot of good that comes out of
Yes.
social media.
So here's one way that I will be in it through her Spectrum SIP,
Right.
because I will basically be the so we're gonna hire people who are on the spectrum, and I'm basically gonna be their manager because I understand.
Yeah.
I understand. I've already set up a system of just hey, if they're overwhelmed, can't they just go and make the mixtures for the stuff? Because it's just that's easy. That's upstairs. They don't have to talk to anyone.
Yeah.
And then I can run the register. I don't I'm just making the accommodations, and I feel I could probably she could probably manage the social media, but I could put stuff out there. But
I think it'd be really cool, man, because I think that there's so many, like you said, earlier, that you weren't alone, and you finding out that you weren't alone was one of the most empowering things for you. Realizing
Yeah.
I'm not alone in this struggle.
Yeah.
So having a social media platform where you can share your story of triumph and your story of overcoming things, can make a huge difference, or a bigger difference than you're already making.
Yeah.
I want you guys to talk about Spectrum SIP. What is that? What's the concept? And when's it opening? And
let's turn it over to my mom because she's the expert on this.
let's hear
I'm not
it.
really an expert. Honestly, I was just inspired because of the Black Mountain community in North Carolina.
Right.
Where his school was located, the community offers
I
job
also had
positions.
a job there.
Yes,
Yeah.
he worked.
Yeah.
So they offer job positions to the students, and I just thought that was wonderful that. Because otherwise, Buckley wouldn't have a job. He wouldn't. How can you have skills if you're never put in that situation? And
Yeah.
I mean, like any kid getting a job. I mean, autistic children or kids on the spectrum are no different. They if the goal is independence, you have to start with something. So, I guess just seeing that, and I'm like, what can I do? Gosh, I really wish Mississippi didn't. And there are places that hire neurodiverse people in Mississippi. It's just not very well advertised. It's just not out there. And that's what, I don't know. So I'm like, I got to come up with something. I need to come up with something. I can do that. We have means to do that. He's coming home. And really, I wanted something for him. And like, if we don't have a plan for the future, we have this. There will be this that he can kind of own, take ownership of. And so Spectrum SIP is going to be located in Belhaven. It's going to sell healthy meal replacement shakes and loaded energy teas. And that's it. It's just a means to
Well,
an
that's
end.
not all of it. We're gonna hire people. On
Well,
the spectrum
but
and-
that's what
yeah.
the shop is. That's
Yes.
what we
Right.
are. It's gonna, a smoothie shop basically,
Yeah.
with energy teas as well. And the goal, what we will do though, I will hire neurodiverse people. That will be my employee pool.
That's
And
incredible.
it's so awesome because I've put on there that we're opening soon. Hope the building's supposed to be ready this month, and hopefully all the permits will pass through, and I'll be able to open the doors for business in December. That's the hope. But I've put it out there and said what the goal was, and Buckley's school inspiring me, and then of course him inspiring me. That I've already been contacted by several people who have a child or even an adult who's on the spectrum that wants to apply. So I've gotten really good feedback already, which I'm thankful for. So
That's incredible.
And interestingly, too, New Summit, Zach New, who
Oh yeah,
met, he was
who's with
several-
Spectrum
several-
Academy now.
Yeah, several months. His, I guess his mom, they started.
His mother started
New Summit.
New Summit
And I walked
School.
into CrossFit, and Holly Henderson, who runs it, goes, "Hey, don't you know him?" And I come, I think I do. And he was like, "Hey, dude, Zach knew he'd remember me from Buckley being there."
Yeah. And
they have partnered with Baptist Medical Center, who, it's where I do most of my work. But anyway, it's sorry to get emotional.
No, it's all good.
Anyway, so but Baptist has started a program where in their transportation, Bobby Ware is the CEO and is a good friend, does a great job. They've like their transportation pool is partnering with New Summit, mostly Spectrum kids to
Transport
to
patients.
give them an opportunity. She says it's really great because you tell me, this guy goes from here to here. Well, they go from here to here. It's very. There's no. You're not going to stop talking between or whatever. You know what I mean? It's kind of.
Right.
It's sort of that. The regimented thinking the way Buckley was. I was like, what a great. You talk about like efficiency and transport and getting people discharged. I mean, it's
Right.
so. And I think they're working through that. I think they've just started it. I'm not sure. I think they're into training and all that. And then I told Zach what Chrissy was doing. He goes, well, man, I'd like to talk to her to maybe she could help us out. So I'm sure Chrissy will talk to Zach as well. It's just good to see.
We're filling a need is what it boils down to, because there is a need for children, for people on the spectrum, teenagers or adults that, you got to have an in. And public awareness, the more the public, the more people know and your community knows and can understand, instead of painting that picture of the Rain Man, this one type. But there's a broad stroke. It's no different. We're all different. I mean, you and I have similarities, but we have lots of differences too.
Right.
But we have value,
Right.
and everyone is employable. if you tap into their strengths.
Yeah.
And that's the goal of Spectrum SIP, is tapping into people's strengths. No, you may not be able to have a conversation and greet at the door, come on in, let's serve you. What kind of meal replacement you want? That may not be your goal. That may not be your strength. But you may be able to make the most delicious tasting shake anyone's ever had because your technique,
Yeah.
So there's so many things, and just being in an environment where, like Buckley said, you're not alone. You have to take orders from someone else. You have to do something the way someone else wants you to do it, and take pride in your work. And that's one thing that Buckley is inspiring to me about, is he is incredibly methodical.
Yeah.
I mean, he doesn't, once he sets his mind to doing something, there is nothing halfway.
Yeah.
I mean, he does it to perfection.
I will barrel through that finishing line. I will not slow down as I'm approaching it. I will go 500 meters past it, just to reach, if I've reached the goal.
I mean, I seriously trust him with any type of really anything, because I know if I tell him to do something, that I need something done, and if I don't get too specific about if it's all about how I want something, then there's going to be some conflict. But if I this is the end result, how you get there is up to you, I just want it done, I've never doubt it's going to happen. I just, and he will do it, and he'll do it well, and he'll do it respectfully. He's respectful of property, he's respectful of, so it's.
So I'm going to ask you a question I ask everyone that comes on here.
Alrighty.
If you had one person that inspired you the most your entire life, one person or one book that inspired you the most, who would that person be? What would that book be, and why?
See, that's a conflict of interest for me, because it's both of them. It has to be both of them, because they both had the same stuff. They went from nothing to everything in their life. They were self-made, and and my parents will literally do anything for me. So my reason is just because I want to be them the most. They did everything for me, and I want to do everything for them. So I feel like they're my little inspiration, I guess. So
I like it, man. What about
how long have we been live?
An hour and 51 minutes.
Oh, we can beat your 2 hour long episode.
Right. What about book? Do you have a book that inspired you the most? Through all the things you've been through, what are you most passionate about, or whatever? Doesn't
Here's
matter.
the problem with that. I don't read.
No?
No, you do now.
I don't.
That's not
okay,
true.
Okay, but I don't read books that are technically inspiring.
It doesn't have to be. No, it doesn't have to be that. Just whatever book that you. Because the reason I asked that question is because I go back and listen to these podcasts over and over, as do other people.
Where's my cheese?
It becomes like a Rolodex. Where's my cheese?
Where's my cheese?
Okay.
It's literally describing it's
Who moved my cheese?
Who moved my cheese?
Who moved my cheese? Yeah, I was gonna say it's not where's my cheese. It's who moved my cheese.
Who moved my cheese?
Yeah.
All right.
So
who's it by? Do you know?
No.
Okay.
I read it at a Spiro, and there was another one about being inside and outside the box and stuff, and
Take it.
not in the sense of thinking, but in the sense of belligerent
Right.
sense. But yeah, but Who Moved My Cheese is basically just the world will move on its own, not just for you. Everything's a moving part. Be ready for it to move, and you need to move with it.
Right.
Because nothing's going to stay the same forever.
Yeah.
So it's coming to terms with that. So that was the first book I read at a Spiro, so it was kind
I'm
of
gonna check it out for sure.
Yeah. It's pretty short, and it's about little people and little mice. It's weird.
Yeah, I'll check it out for sure.
Who you were given that book?
Bob Harris, my partner, actually gave Who Moved My Cheese to all of our employees.
Yeah.
When I first
When
started practicing, Bob's all into
inspirational.
Yeah, come on, y'all call the main guy.
I don't know.
You had something on him.
Tony Robbins?
No, not him. The gray-headed guy, beard, white hair. He's right there with Tony Robbins, though. Where's Bob when I need him?
I don't know.
Who are you talking
You'll have to
about?
edit it in. I'll give it to you in just a minute. But anyway, we actually went and saw him down in Baton Rouge or New Orleans or somewhere, whatever. Bob's always into that. But it's just about
Motivational speakers.
Yeah, it's all about change. It's all about change and being able to accept change and things like that. And earlier, I do get like really. I can't even talk about it, but I do get emotional about this because, as parents, we all want our kids to be more than we are. Now, that doesn't mean, and that means physically. In every aspect, I want my kids to beat me. I want them to be better, have more, whatever that means. More doesn't mean necessarily physical things or personal possessions, but and just knowing, man, when I think where we were, God, it's just when I think of where we were and like where we are now, it is. We have been blessed. I mean, God is good. I mean, we have. Just so many things, could have gone wrong and did go wrong, but it always, had a purpose and ultimately it's going to be great. And again, the people that Buckley met from Amanda Sensak and at Aspiro and
Was it Sensak?
Sensak CNCAK.
I thought it was something.
Cesnak. That's what I spelled. I texted her earlier. She did not text me back. I wanted to get her pronunciation right. So anyway, but Amanda was awesome.
Pam.
Yeah, Pam Splain Black Mountain Academy. Mark Moser came up big for you. Academically, Brandon Moffitt, Zach Pavin, of course. I mean, there are just so many people that will just have such a.
They were transformative.
Yeah, have such a special place for me as well. And I met them on a few occasions. You know what I mean? But just to and again,
nothing makes you love someone else more than how they treat your child.
Right.
Yeah.
Or develop your child.
The love and care that they invested into him, the time that they invested into him,
was priceless.
Unbelievable.
Priceless.
Yeah.
Because for the first time, and Aspiro started the chain of events, but him coming home from Black Mountain was honestly the first time that I ever felt, and it was like this biggest weight was lifted off of me, that Buckley was going to be independent one day.
Yeah.
I don't know, like you said,
I didn't think it.
Before.
I didn't. I really thought he's going to live with me forever, and I'm going to have this another, this man child in my house that I'm going to have to take care of, and I mean, I would if it, if circumstances were, but I know that he's more capable, so. Seeing all the changes that he made and he continues to want to make. That's the other thing. Buckley hasn't stopped growth. He continues to push forward. Yeah. That's the first time that now I know without a doubt Buckley he's going to be fine. He's going to be okay. Is he going to have obstacles and struggles, and will his timeline look different? Absolutely. But I'm not, it's like I have no fear anymore. I'm not worried, oh gosh, if I die, who's going to take care of him? I don't think about that. He's going to take care of himself. His brothers aren't going to have to take care of him. His sister's not going to have to take care of him. Because I know a lot of people with special needs, children, that's a fear of when I die, who's going to take care of my kid? Right. And, that's an awful feeling.
Who inspired you guys the most from a parent's perspective? Like when you guys were going through it, I mean, I'm sure you were like devouring information, trying to figure out and resources and whatnot. Like, who do you think for you guys was the most inspiring through the process, or even just in life in general?
Well, mine's easy. Mine was Christy because she was way more on top of it than I was. I mean, we are too concrete. We are not naturally nurturers. Not that we don't love our children, but it's just moms are just better. I mean, they're better at it. They see the needs. Ultimately, when the ultimate decisions and it's falling apart, I think that's when we kind of sort of step in because we think of it differently. But I've always said she's forgotten more than I know about this, and early on I know I would say some really stupid things like well, he'll be better next year. He'll figure it out, and she's like going, all right, you don't get it. All right, you don't get it. Okay, you obviously do not know our child. You do not know. So that's when I kind of started reading actually. Realizing things because you just want to fix it. I don't know who. You're pretty much all alone.
I don't know this person. I've never met him. He wrote a book. It's called "Look Me in the Eyes." He is Asperger's, less so high functioning. I think his name is Ron something. I'm terrible with.
I think that's right. Because I
but
read
anyway,
some of it with you.
he wrote a book about what it was like for him growing up, and he has the greatest story because he did the sound and stuff for Kiss. He made the
nice
stuff come out of the guitar. So he lived this
riffs.
whole life. This amazing life that it was like, I'm on tour, it's no big deal. And now he redoes old cars, and he has a he's married again, I think, as a child. So he just kind of reading his story, I guess that was an inspiration to me from a parent, from a neurotypical person reading a neurodiverse person talk about their life and their challenges, because at that time Buckley could not articulate what he was feeling. Are you looking up who it is?
No,
Yeah,
he's
it's
looking up
driving me crazy.
motivational books.
Oh,
Trying to find out who the other answer is. I'll find yours too.
so that
Uncle Google
that
knows
was
everything.
what was helpful.
Yeah.
Was his book, reading that, and it was so weird how it came about, because it was not long after we got the diagnosis, and I'd had that book.
Yeah.
And I mean, it just didn't seem interesting to me. So I kind of read the first few pages,
And then suddenly-
and I put it down,
Yeah.
and I came back across it looking for something else, and I was like, oh my gosh, I got to read this now.
Yep.
And so that was a comforting, and inspiring, because I'm like, okay, he did it with very little help. He survived, and on his own, because there were no resources then at all available to him. And so I was like, okay, this can be done. He can be okay. He can be okay, because some of the things he described, to how he would act and respond, and things he would do or things he would think, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's Buckley. Yeah. You look for any kind of association. Oh, good, yes, that means
Normalizes it.
yes, or there's blood in the water. We all have the same.
Right,
all of our blood's in the water.
Totally.
Yay!
For sure.
So that was
Look me in the eyes. Okay. John Maxwell, by the way.
John Maxwell.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm just saying, you had something on him.
I'm sure I did. Yeah. No, he's a great guy. I've never been to one of his seminars, but I'd love to go. Yeah, he's the guru of leadership, servant leadership.
Yeah, motivational. But that's what I would say as far, because honestly, I isolated away during a lot of that. With friendships, I didn't. How do you talk? Because there's several things that happen. People feel sorry for you.
Right.
John Elder Robinson.
Yeah, John Elder Robertson
There you go.
is he wrote "Look Me in the Eyes," amazing book. But people feel sorry for you, or they're uncomfortable, or they're full of well-meaning advice, which makes you want to kill them.
Right.
The stuff that they say, you're just like.
He'll grow out of it.
No, well, they're just, you need to. You need to. If it
Do
starts
ABC.
off with you need to,
Right.
just walk, just
You need to, you
smile.
ought to, you should to.
Yeah,
ABCD,
I'm
yeah.
like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know you had a child on the spectrum. Oh, you don't. Oh,
You should.
Okay. So talk to. So
It's kind of like when you get advice from people on parenting. It's like they don't have kids. It's like
worst.
come
It's the
on.
worst.
Prep.
Yeah, it's like my kid would never. I'm not gonna let my kid do that.
We'll just wait and see.
Yeah.
So
You
it
guys
was-
are so tired. If you just do it this way, your kid will
Right.
sleep more.
Just make them go to bed.
Yeah, it's that simple.
The only thing we will recommend is put a lock on the outside of your child's door if they keep getting in your bed.
Honestly.
You have to guard your bed.
Totally.
Guard your space.
Guard your space.
Guard your space. Don't forget you were a spouse before you were a parent.
If you guys had to have like one lesson that you guys learned the hardest way that you could teach somebody else, like one lesson that could be just in life, it could be with dealing with a child on the spectrum, whatever, like just a lesson that you would want to share with somebody that you can save them some of the heartache, what would that lesson be, you think, and why?
Like just in general,
Yeah.
about everything.
I'm pretty sure for you, Mom, it's don't enable.
Well, I mean,
That was
that's you're right, Buckley,
Yeah.
because I'm not just an enabling situation that we got into,
Yeah.
but I did a lot of enabling with family members and relationships,
Yeah.
social relationships.
Yeah.
I kind of take one for the team.
Yep.
I can contribute to the madness. My help became unhelpful.
Right.
Have a bad habit of that, because we both have that disease of being fixers.
Right.
Yeah.
So my advice is quit assigning yourself to fix.
Meet people where they are.
Yeah.
Yes, and from our conversation last night, I don't want. I think it's unhealthy to try to fix everybody around you.
Right. Agreed.
So.
What about you, Buckley? What's one of the lessons that you learned in your life that like you'd want to share with somebody else to save them some heartache that maybe you like realized over the course of the last couple of years?
I've already said it.
What was that?
You're not the only person in the room. You are not the only one suffering. Everyone else is everyone else has problems. You shouldn't put your problems first.
Got it.
Because everyone else matters.
Take that.
You're not alone.
Sweet. What's the best way for people to get in touch with you guys?
Cell phone.
Here it is.
I don't know if we want to put it on the air.
Carrier pigeon.
Yeah.
No, I think, Buckley, you should definitely start some little social thing. I think
You probably have a cousin that
I think
can
it
help
would
you
be-
out or something too. How to
Yeah.
get started.
Start you out, buddy.
Yeah. But I honestly, Spectrum Sip or Christy Spites. I'm on Facebook
Right.
and
I have
Instagram.
an email.
Spectrum Sip, or what do you?
It's at Spectrum Sip Bellhaven.
That's the Instagram handle. Okay.
I have an email. I don't know.
I'm gonna create you an Instagram before I leave here. You're gonna have an Instagram.
I think that's a great idea.
Well, you're here tomorrow, right?
Well,
I am.
the funny story about him not doing, if I remember correctly, about him
Yes.
not doing. Chris goes, "Hey, you want an Instagram account?" But he
yes,
goes,
I was going to
"Yeah."
let him earn social
Yeah.
media privileges.
This is beautiful.
I thought he's a teenager. Of course, he wants to have
Yeah.
that.
I don't remember
You
this
said-
story.
No, you said I'm not
Awesome.
responsible enough.
He
didn't
said, "I don't want an Instagram account."
yeah.
I said, "Because I'll help you set one up." He goes, "I don't want an Instagram account. I am definitely not responsible enough to handle it."
Which how many kids
That's
say
fair.
that?
That's
know,
fair.
So,
He was like 14, because I thought, well,
Yeah.
at this time, kids, they were saying Facebook isn't cool anymore. Now that Instagram was kind of
Instagram.
new.
Snapchat.
Well, right,
TikTok.
Snapchat now, but Instagram then was kind of the newer at that time.
TikTok's not social media.
And he was like,
Media.
"No, I don't.
It's
I don't
rip
think
off
I'm-
YouTube.
Yeah, I don't think I'm responsible enough to handle."
Well, we're gonna get you an Instagram because I really do think, and
I
you
agree.
can tell me to.
Just watch it explode.
Yeah, well, I just think that like you can make a bigger difference than I think you're even aware of. I mean, like I said, sharing this podcast and the thousands of people that are going to listen to it's going to make a difference in people's lives. And if you have like an Instagram and a way for people to connect directly with you, to where it's like they don't need to have your phone number or anything like that, but they can send you a direct message and be like, "Buckley, I'm dealing with this." And you can give them from your perspective, like how you overcame some things. I mean, going out in the wilderness,
Yeah.
like I said, was a huge milestone, not just for you, but for a lot of other people.
Yeah.
And it's like people reach out to me, like just with like my overcoming from my back surgeries and like all the pain medication and this and that and recovering. People will reach out to me. How did you do that? It's just a way to like open up a dialogue and kind of help people along the way. So I think you creating an Instagram will be an awesome way of you like giving back.
Alrighty.
And who knows? You talked about the investment piece, so it's like you never know. You can be sponsored and all kinds of cool stuff.
Yeah.
And I'll help you along the way.
Yeah.
So
for a small fee.
Well, hopefully we have breached the gap of your longest episode.
almost.
Almost?
No.
Oh.
But hey, I really appreciate you being willing to do this. To be honest with you,
I'm
man.
happy to do it. I wish I could have done it with Zach as well, but like, cause like that was the original plan. Me and him, and then then it would have been in a 3-hour long episode.
Well, why don't we can do a part 2 to this, and all three of us can get together. Whether that be you come up to North Carolina, I meet you guys there, or Zach comes down here and I come back
He needs
here.
to
You
do
guys come to
another
California.
Spartan. He wanted to
I
do
wanted
one
to do this
to this
one.
one coming up, but it,
And I'm sad that this is going to be the way
Yeah.
that Zach is going to end up finding out because I haven't texted him yet. It's like, I can't do it.
Right.
And I'm
I've let
upset
them know.
about it. Oh, you did? Oh. Maybe that's why they didn't text me back
Yeah.
yet.
Well, thank you so much, Buckley, for sharing like your story like so candidly and openly and like honestly. Like that's seriously appreciated, and I'm being serious with you, man. I really
Yeah.
think
A few
you're going to change a lot of
tear-jerking
lives.
moments here and there, but
Yeah, for sure.
About me.
And Christy,
no,
and-
and me. Dad, you're not the only one. Come on. We're all
way too
emotional. We're
emotional.
all big babies.
and thank you guys for like letting me into your home and the hospitality and sharing your story so like openly and like
I think it's different because you're cousins, but
Well, I mean,
I'm glad you made the track down here.
hey, we get
seriously.
dinner tonight, and he can cook some. He cooks some. He's steaming some ribs.
Oh yeah, can't wait.
I
No, but
can't
but
wait.
thank you guys,
I
seriously.
literally can't
We
wait.
appreciate you.
Yes, absolutely.
And I can't wait to share it. And if there's anything I can ever do to help you guys in any way, by all means, I'm just one phone call away. So
I appreciate
make it happen.
But you're several states.
It's all
Same-
good though.
same
Just
here.
one plane flight. Without any delays, I can
Really?
get here within like 4 or 5 hours.
Wait. There's a direct flight.
No.
No.
To Jackson? I don't know. Maybe that. I
No.
I was
We
like-
told you. Houston, Dallas, Charlotte, and Atlanta.
Not-
That's
Chicago.
what. That's
it.
what I was being sarcastic there.
Oh,
No one
okay.
picked up,
Alright,
but
yeah, we
yeah, I
should
was
not.
just like, really.
Sorry.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys.
Alrighty.
Talk to you soon.
Thank you for listening to Getting Real with Josh Boyer. If you're loving the podcast, please leave a rating and subscribe. You can follow us on all social media platforms and YouTube at gettingreal_. You can also check us out at joshboyer.com.